Welcome to another episode of Inside the NAL, where we bring you all the action that you hopefully didn't miss during this last week of broadcasts for competitive Rainbow Six. But in case you did, that's why we are here. Hi, my name is Jess Brohart, and here with me to bring you all the action, I have my friends Veli, Blue, and Stokes. What's going on tonight, guys?
I feel great. We just had an amazing series that's happened this week. It's closed down, and Phase 2, we're one step closer to seeing how things turn out between the top four and what's happening with the bottom four.
Yeah, it's been an amazing week on all fronts, including CL. I don't think we've had any slouch of a series so far, so definitely a great week for competitive Siege.
Yeah, pretty much the same sentiments as the rest of these guys here. Another great week of games. The NAL, especially the US division, has continued to be a really epic occasion, and quite a few surprises continue to pop up here, so I'm really excited to get into the next week as well.
And Blue, I'm so glad that you mentioned the U.S. division, because that's what I want to take a look at first, to talk about the fact that we are now in Phase 2. We've got some new groups, a lot of new matchups. So what are we excited for here in Phase 2?
Yeah, obviously, the biggest thing that I'm excited for is the fact that the stakes are immediately higher. There's a lot more on the line, major qualification. More qualification that leads into the major and whatnot. A lot more stakes are on the line, so we can hopefully expect greater performances out of all these teams now that they have a better idea as to what the next few months look like for them after this first phase is finished.
I'm going to tell you right now, everything we know about Siege just went out the window. Oxygen is looking like the best team in all of NA. Space Station don't look as hot as they used to. So you really don't know how any of this is going to turn out. So predictions have pretty much been trash on my end. And I'm surprised every single play day about the results that happened.
Well, we'll circle back around and take a deeper dive into the U.S. division a little later on, but we also saw the second day of play for the Challenger League and the Canadian division. Let's talk about the Challengers League. So last Friday's matchup was The Last Dance versus Joe Esports. That was a 2-0 in favor of The Last Dance, but it was one of those series where the story of the overall series does not necessarily match the story of the individual maps. We saw at least one overtime map. So what did you guys think of this match?
I loved it. I sat down and I actually watched The Last Dance do their thing. And the roster is just stacked. You take a look at who they have. I saw Young on Ash, which was pretty phenomenal. Butters went off. Rainbow is a beast. We've seen Spades in Pro League. And even Kilo, I've casted him doing USN. This team has Tier 1 U.S. division potential, but it's all about if they can last all the way into the end. It's going to be a hard-fought battle, and for those of you that, you're new to the scene and whatnot, at the end of the U.S. division, the last place NA team might face off against The Last Dance, or any of these other teams. So we're really looking at the people that are next up.
I would have to agree with you there, but I would say with all of the squads inside of CL right now, PogChamp as well as Rent Free stand out more to me when it comes to when it comes to a couple of different things. The Last Dance is a amazing squad, a lot of ex-pros, so much potential, but when it comes to showtime and when it comes down to who is more exciting for me to watch personally, because I expect The Last Dance to do well, it comes down to PogChamp as well as Rent Free for me. I think that they've been playing out of their mind. PogChamp hasn't had the best run recently, but when it comes down to the other remaining squad, I definitely see them as an outlier.
Yeah, my thoughts pretty much echo the same thing as my last two comrades here. We saw pretty much a stacked roster go up against a newer team when it comes to CL play, so I think we saw pretty much the expected result out of that with The Last Dance taking it. Still well fought by them, of course. Still managed to make those maps relatively close, all things considered, but not a huge surprise to see The Last Dance managing to take that matchup from last week.
Well, we do have a clip for you guys already. Now here we're about to see Beastly tossing out just such a delicious nade, and things are going to play out great, after that for Joe to take their first defensive round victory. Unfortunately, as we saw, the scoreline did not work out in their favor for the series as a whole, but go ahead and take a look at this clip.
Strategy or even a retake there, and it's Spades that's now on the hunt down below. He's a crouch walking Ash. He's totally silent. So unless the pulse spots him, which he does, then this could be the jig being up. But oh no, what a beautiful toss, and Beastly reads him like a book as Prophecy had started this round with a kill for his team, and Joe finds himself on the board. But a bit of a misstep It'll narrow in terms of advantage as Clicks gets taken out, the smoke eliminated by rethinking on a team kill that was obviously not likely. Prophecy downs Kylo, there goes Brainbow, and Young is dead as well. All right, well, everything...
All right, and excuse me, I did misspeak rather. I've been doing a lot of that tonight, it seems, but it was a C4. But what did you guys think of that play?
Yeah, we saw some pretty cool stuff out of that one. It seems like this whole last week, these last couple days of play has just been lining up for some pretty crazy Nitro cell kills. We had quite a bit of that in the matchup from Wednesday night that Stokes and I casted as well, where people were just finding those kills left and right, and I think we had some of the same thing happen on Monday for our same batch.
Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the bracket then. Of course, as we saw, things didn't quite play out for Joe for the rest of that series, but that was still, of course, I think an impressive play that we had to highlight. So now that we've had a couple weeks of play for challengers, what do you guys think of this bracket?
It's exactly what I've been saying. Sam thinks there's another team that could top him, but to me, The Last Dance, they're my favorites. Everybody on this team, they've been in Pro League. They want to be back in Tier 1.
No. First things first. First things
boy.
first here, okay? I'm not saying The Last Dance is a bad team. That's not what I'm saying. They're the best team in CL right now. What I'm saying is these are all results that we expected. We expected The Last Dance to be this good, Vel. You can't just say, okay, obviously the best team's going to be the best. Yeah, no crap, man. Come on. I'm saying the other two teams, for me personally, are more exciting to watch. I'd much rather watch them play. I already know what's going to happen with The Last Dance. The other two squads, I want to see how they develop throughout the season because they have to stand this test of time. They have to go up against The Last Dance, and somebody has to be successful. Otherwise, The Last Dance is just walking away with everything.
I respect it.
All right. Well, we do have another bracket ready for you. We have the Group A bracket here in the Challengers League. So that would be the matches we saw the first week. And then looking ahead, the matches that we will see coming up, which is going to be PogChamp versus Polar Ace. Now, we have seen PogChamp before. I know a little bit about them, but what do we know about Polar Ace? What are we expecting here?
Polar Ace is actually a team that came all the way from the open bracket, to my knowledge. I'm not super familiar with any of the individual names on that one. I was tracking their progress up until this point when they actually qualified for CL, and it looks like they came entirely from the open bracket, like all these other teams did, and managed to fight their way into it. So clearly capable enough to be in this bracket. Whether they're going to be able to bring enough firepower to take down PogChamp, however, that's where we have a much greater question, because obviously you have a lot more well-known names on PogChamp that have a lot of experience, at this level, at the CL level of play as well. So I think that they will still have PogChamp. This is a pretty disadvantage looking at that series.
There's something I want to point out, definitely. We see on the bottom right side, Spiker, that they're in 4th place. The one thing that a lot of players are going to have to realize, especially in the Tier 2 level, if you're Tier 3 trying to move your way up, first things first, it's baby steps. You're not going to be the best overnight, right? I see one name on this roster that I'm real familiar with, Sonar, Blue Sam, Blue and Stokes casted him with me. Excuse me, I can't talk either. Jess is contagious, I swear. But this team, they have talent. One thing I want to put out there, I just hope that, even though you got last in your group, that's fine. Keep trucking, keep driving. We've seen teams rise up in the rankings. So me personally, looking at the names here, I really haven't dug deep into their games yet to see how they play, but there's talent. There's talent. So I hope they hold on strong and start to upset teams in the future.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and move on up north to the Canadian division, where we saw Altiora take a 2-1 over Livid. What's the kind of predominant takeaway here?
I think looking at this matchup, for me, the tail of this one, and it was a pretty close series, especially when you look at overall map scores for this one. I have it in front of me here and now, especially when it got to that second map. But at the end of the day, at least on a round-by-round basis, Altiora just had way more capability on the entry side of things than we saw from their opponents. Livid Gaming, not a single player in that matchup for them managed to go positive on any type of entry capability. So the early round was just, throughout the entire series, almost entirely controlled by Altiora, and that contributed in a huge fashion to them being able to take as many rounds as they did and win the 2 maps they did win in the fashion they did. I think the scorelines here, I'll just pull up in front of me real quick here, at 7-4 and 7-1.
Wow.
Yeah, a very dominant showing. And honestly, John, I have to agree with you there. I don't think that there was too much to take away, especially when one squad only ended up getting 5 rounds. That's the hard thing, though, is when it comes down to those 2-0s where you see that happen. It's like you guys didn't even get enough rounds to win one map. So it's kind of harsh to it's kind of hard to break that down, right? Because it's like, okay, well, obviously one team is just bested the other.
Well, just to correct you real quick, they did manage to take that second map that they played on Coastline at least, and that was where it went the closest overall, because that one ended on an overall 8-7 scoreline for Livids. They managed to get that one, but it was on Clubhouse in Oregon where we unfortunately saw them fall in a much more one-sided
How are you going to do
fashion.
me like that, John?
Right, he left that one map out.
You left one map out, man. You're just gonna knife. True friends stab you in the front, and that's just what happened.
We have to be correct here, Stokes. We have to be factual,
Wow, some big accusations getting tossed around, but we do have another clip ready for you here. We're going to see the final moments of map 1, where we're going to see Dot getting a double kill into a last-minute plant into a... Just go ahead and watch.
And it has been really awkward for both teams when they were doing it. So I like the adjustment. Kohi is going to get his second kill of this map. He takes down Sizima. That's a good pick. And it's important that he continues to persist on that drop down above his opponents. Rowdy Ali will take down Spirits as well, but the clear upstairs is working out for Altiara as they manage to get their first kill, and down goes Kohi. The entry in through the site itself is not netting any kills just yet, and the Collie's missing his shots. Mizio needs to land those. Dot will get Omega, though, so at least there's that. One of the players on the cross. The entry for the Thermite gets a second and a third. Dot really waking up here, but Rowdy's still there as well. It's a 1v1, but only 8 seconds left. Dot has to go for a plant. He doesn't have a choice. It's all on Rowdy to time this perfectly. Dot will get it down and win the fight.
All right, well, Veli, what did I heard you? I think that was you that just said, "Oh my God!" So, what did you think?
It was like a battle of who could get the highest kill streak in that round right there. And I didn't expect Dot to jump out like a warrior and get that last kill. That was amazing. I love it. I want more of it.
Yeah, that last minute defuse plant and then the almost unnecessary kill there at the end.
Just showing off, right?
Yeah.
Definitely got some style points for that one, but I would definitely say that now that I have the full series in front of me, that it was a good series overall. It does suck, though, that it came down to the Clubhouse 7-1, though. That just doesn't tell the proper tale that you want it to.
All right, well, let's go ahead and take a look at the Canadian bracket, where the next matchup we're going to see is going to be Nordic versus Livid. Obviously not a whole lot of matches that we've had happen so far, but what here are you really looking forward to? What are your predictions for Mirage versus Altiora?
Well, Flynn's gonna lose, first of all. So we can watch that. We can just sweep that one right under the rug. But Nordic in Livid, definitely looking forward to that. I can tell you.
Yeah, that one overall should be pretty close. I mean, we look at the 2 matches that haven't played on all, and they've all gone to 3 maps. I would expect the same thing for the Nordic Esports and Livid matchup. For the Mirage and Altiora one, that one's a little bit more up in the air. I think that's more going to be about Mirage's capability to control the early round aggression, especially obviously when Altiora are on attack, and shut down some of that entry capability that we saw be so strong against their opponent from last week's match.
I believe that the biggest thing to point out right now is this Canada bracket is not a breeze to run through, right? I mean, every match has been close, 1-2 and 1-2. That just shows the level of competition here is legit. You can't sleep on these guys.
Yeah, on a serious note, moving into that Mirage Altiora game, if Altiora is not able to shut down Mirage early on, it's going to be very, very dangerous for them overall, especially with the ability of not loading. I mean, everyone saw what he's capable of when he has to get frags. You're more than likely going to see a 20 bomb, and that's not what you want to happen if you're Altiora.
All right, well, let's move on to the U.S. division, where so much has happened. We are in our 3rd week of matches, but we are in the start of Phase 2. The groups are different. We have new matchups. So, previously we saw some of the, not necessarily clear-cut titans, but we would maybe see some standout performers in each group. And now it's just almost, we've had upsets everywhere. Almost anything can happen. Guys, talk to me about why it's so significant that we are seeing this reshuffling of the groups.
So it is extremely important considering the fact that Group A now has two of the top teams from each group from phase 1. So top 4, they're in one group. The bottom 4, they're in the next. And looking at your screen now, Group A, if you're in the top 3, you are automatically qualified for the NA major. Now, Group B, yes, you want to make it to that regional qualifier. But if you don't, and this is going to be the most important thing out of all of this, if you get last place, you're going to play against the top Challenger League team, and they have a chance to beat you and take your spot in the US division if you land that low.
Yeah, with the squads that are coming into this as well, we only have a few remaining squads to figure out to where they're going to be initially inside of these groups. We had two matchups, well, our most recent matchups were Oxygen versus TSM and Disrupt versus Tempo Storm. John, you and I casted Disrupt versus Tempo Storm, which ended up falling into the favor of Disrupt, but they're both inside of Group B. What does that exactly mean for them?
That means that Disrupt is still going to be at a greater chance to be able to, 1, stay out of relegation territory, and 2, move themselves into a potential position to go to the US qualifier, which is what all the teams in Group E are looking for, as Veli said before. And I would say that Disrupt probably has one of the best chances to make it through into one of those slots. They've been showing a really great performance. If we remember back from Monday's matches, they almost managed to upset against Space Station Gaming and flip the script a little bit there. But the fact that they managed to lose that match unfortunately sent them down to the other group, and now they're fighting their heart out to at least make sure they can get to the qualifier. And if they continue the way they have been, they've probably got a pretty good chance of getting it. They've continued to surprise and, more importantly, impress the North American community over these past 3 weeks now, I think.
Well, and Blue, I'm really glad you brought that match up. Let's dive a little deeper into that match, SSG versus Disrupt 2-1. What are some of your other kind of key takeaways there?
So for that matchup overall, again, it just comes down to, first of all, a lot of the individual plays. We got to highlight NJR and his capability to play make throughout the course of these matches. Even just looking at the other game that they played on Wednesday night, he was constantly bringing the team back from the dead, where they would have had no chance to close out on a round from a 2vx or a 1vx in certain situations. He's showing himself to be the player on the team to be able to bring those situations out into the open and win them, more importantly. And he's doing that, with a lot of flair right now too, which is always fun to see. He's making a lot of fans this season, and he's a big powerhouse reason as to why Disrupt are doing so well.
One of my favorite storylines about that team in general is just Nyx, the IGL. He was replaced on Dark Zero, was replaced from Oxygen when they were known as Reciprocity, and then he was landed with this position to captain the team that he put together, and they look extremely successful, and honestly look like the team with the biggest super potential in all of NAL. They look like they can beat any team in the US division.
It's just to cut back in here for a second. It's a really good sign to see Nyx doing so well, because I think this is the first time that he may be on the team between him and Retro anyway, in sort of like a senior leadership position where he's the player with the most experience coming into it. In the previous 2 rosters, I don't believe that was the case. They had still had players on his roster with more experience than him, so he was still kind of like the junior in that respect. But now that's flipped a little bit, and so far with him being kind of the old guard for this team between him and Retro, I think that they're doing really good at leading the team.
I was gonna say you definitely have to put an asterisk there for Retro, because he's the only one on that entire squad that actually has a championship. So him and Nick definitely putting in a lot of work. But I will say this, and Jess, I hate to make this more extended than it needs to be, but you guys didn't even talk about Fultz. You have to talk about Fultz. He hasn't been successful throughout this entire season, and then in this best of 3 against Disrupt, all of a sudden he's the best player in the entire lobby. I mean, come on. You can't discount that man at all. The biggest biceps on the whole squad overall, pulling them out of a very, very deep hole there for just a split second. I almost thought Disrupt had that one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so sorry, Stokes, to try to cut you off. I let the other 2 speak. I should let you speak as well, but I did want to also move on and look at the other match that we saw on Monday. We saw TSM 2-0 Sonics. So what was the story of this match?
I think ultimately for that one, that was just the story of a team which had some rocky moments, as being TSM, of course, in the opening weeks, which may have led this matchup to seem like it was going to be a lot closer, especially the fact that Sonics as well have been improving their own game plan. So it made it look like TSM was kind of trending downward, whereas Sonics was trending upward. It seems, though, at least for this week, TSM managed to get their stuff together. Seems to be getting the roles a lot more well established, which is something they were messing around with, especially in week number 1 as well. And with all that clicking together, together, they managed to take a really convincing win against the Sonics. So it's showing that Sonics still have a little bit more work to do. Obviously, they're working with their own set of issues, with a lot of which they can't really affect. Obviously, they're still working with a sub, but still, they put up a good fight too. But ultimately, I think that's just a more experienced team, especially at the higher level, that's winning that matchup.
All right, well, I believe we have a couple of brackets to show you so that we can see kind of how we got to where we are before we take a look at Wednesday's matches. So we've got the Group A bracket first up. This is the new Group A. What's the most significant part of this new Group A bracket for you guys?
It's just the fact that we're seeing now the top 4 teams that we expected to be top 4, right? To battle it out to see who the best of the best is. And that's my favorite part about this GSL format. So we were treated with TSM against Oxygen, but I feel like the best is yet to come between Dark Zero and Space Station Gaming.
I think the beauty of that matchup as well, looking at the bracket, is that no matter who loses, we are going to have a banger for the following match. SSG loses, they go down to face TSM. Dark Zero loses, they go down to face TSM. I mean, either way you break it, it's going to be beautiful, and I cannot wait.
Yeah, I mean, overall, just looking at these 4 teams, these are like the top 4 teams in NA when it comes to player reputations, team reputations. These are who all the fans look to, so it's going to be a very, very close match, regardless of who goes up against who in this bracket.
And then let's look at the Group B bracket and check out some storylines there. As we can see, Disrupt 2-1ing Tempo Storm on Wednesday. What else is intriguing? I heard an ooh there. Let's expand
I forgot
upon
that E United even existed. To be completely honest with you, we haven't talked about them in quite a while.
Wow.
So
It's a bit
I
harsh.
mean, I'm just being honest. Honesty is the best policy. We haven't talked about E United in what seems like eons. So them playing up against the Sonics, I'm hoping that they've hit the books hard. They've had quite a bit of time now off. So scrims, all that good stuff. Hopefully have been going on. We'll have to see how successful they are up against the Sonics. The Sonics have been looking so good, and I think that last matchup actually showed us how successful they can possibly be. Even though they got 2-0'd by TSM, they showed a lot of brilliance, especially in their play on Consulate and their ability to adapt to a situation. And Gomfi has been knocking lights out left and right, so hopefully we see the same successful story.
Yeah, well, if we want to dive in a little bit into those Wednesday matches, Oxygen taking a 2-1 versus TSM and Disrupt taking a 2-1 versus Tempo Storm. I mean, any surprises here? Because I think we maybe saw a little bit more life, if I can use that word, out of Tempo Storm than we've been seeing previously. I do like that one map that they got on the board. And then Oxygen, of course, is always looking like a top contender, I think, these days. What are your opinions?
My opinion is E United, that Stokes called out, and Tempo Storm, they need to start showing that they belong in the NAL. Let's be brutally honest. Both of these teams, they haven't had the best showing. And you know what? The last game that Tempo Storm had, they showed some life, especially after basically everyone on that team swapped their roles. But the thing is, with so many good free agents out there, JNINO is subbing in the NAL, and he's showing that he belongs here. You have a lot of talent in Tier 2 now. Now more than ever is when players cannot get comfortable for being in Tier 1 because they're not in the relegation game yet. From this point on, they're all going to have to play lights out. E United, huge org, amazing players, great personalities. It's the battle of who doesn't want to be the worst, and they need to stay away from the bottom, so it's going to be exciting.
Looking at that match specifically between Disrupt and Tempo, there's still the big inconsistency issue for Tempo. We had some really great moments tonight or on Wednesday night, especially from Mark specifically. But the problem was he came alive almost seemingly on random rounds. He would just light up the scoreboard with a double or a triple kill, and then we wouldn't see him again for 3 to 4 rounds on the kill board. That kind of consistency is just not going to work at the pro level here. So they need to try and put someone forward who can just be that player for them to be able to clutch out, because it seems like it's almost random right now for
Sam,
Tempo
what
Storm.
made you breathe hard? What happened?
I guess the difficult thing for me looking at these two separate games is it's very, very hard when you look at it overall. For me, inside of these two games, Tempo Storm's the one that I would truly want to talk about, because for Oxygen, I expected them to do well, especially with how successful Bio's been throughout the season so far. And I mean, I think you've said it multiple times at this point, Valley. As long as we continue to see a successful Biologic, we're going to continue to see a successful Oxygen. Tempo Storm, on the other hand, though, it's a rough ship for them right now. They need to batten down the hatches and battle through this. We continually see them strive to get better, and I think that that's the main thing. We've seen progress, but it just needs to happen a touch faster if they want to be able to course correct for the season.
What I'm hearing is a lot of expectations, a lot of high expectations from all three of you tonight, and that is what I love to hear. But I also want to hear more from Veli, who has a segment prepared on somebody who needs to step up. Veli, who needs to step it up this
I've been
week?
waiting all week for this. You know what? It makes me sad knowing that I have to talk to this player this way. But he's so much better than this. And you know who needs to step it up? And he needs to wake up. It's going to be one and only TSM Merc. Now, the reason why I'm calling Merc out is because ever since he joined the Tier 1 scene with his old duo Folds on separate teams, they've been standout players, right? And just running through the stats, USN 2019, 47 kills, positive 9 in KD. SI 2020 playoffs, 141 kills, positive 9 and a 1.01 rating, which is great, by the way. Season 11, last season, 1.18 rating, 139 kills, and he went positive 29. Now compare that to arguably the best player in the world right now, Hyper. He had 143 kills and a 0.01 rating higher than Merc. Merc is great, okay? No one's taking this away from him, but we have to say it. And you know what? Just being nice sometimes isn't it. Merc is better than this, and whatever funk he's in, he has to bring it out. And the reason why I'm saying this is because TSM, they were the third best team in the world in February, and now they're not even looking like that anymore. The moment Merc starts to wake up, I believe that he's going to be the most fearless slayer on this roster, because right now, Bolo's going off, Chal is getting all the highlights, but where's Merc to be found? He is not doing good at all. This Maestro, he's having a hard time finding kills when it comes to entry fragging with Ash. He's really not there. We need Merc to wake up and step up now, because we cannot afford to wait till later, because TSM, they had a team change, and while they're trying to work that team change out, they cannot have issues with one of their star players.
Here's the difficult thing when it comes to Merc. It is the fact that it seems that his play style hasn't changed from when he was so successful.
Yeah.
It seems as though everyone knows how he plays now and is able to counter it. Because looking at strictly his entry game, Veli, he's negative 12 right now. And to make that even more harsh, he has 17 entries. Do you know what that means? 29 deaths. He's been the opening death 29 times. Merc, listen, I've known you for a very long time, my man. Very, very long time. You are one of the best Ashes I've ever seen play this game ever. You just need to change something up. You need to throw something new at the wall. You have to change. You have to adapt. And that's the hardest thing. I know you've been used to this play style for so long where you walk in and you just fry everyone that even decides to peek a pixel on the screen. But maybe it's time to go back to the drawing board and draw something new up. We all know that you have the stuff, you have the skill. We just want to see it come to fruition.
It hasn't really been all bad for Merc. There was still relatively good stats for him in the matchup that they played versus the Sonics. We were able to see pretty good results from coming out of that one. Now, obviously, you can take that for what it's worth, given that their opponent was the Sonics. Reputationally speaking, there's like a pretty big gap between those two teams. So I think that there's still moments of greatness coming for Merc. I actually pretty heavily agree with Stokes when I think it's a matter of him kind of being played out at this point. Most teams have figured out his play style and know what to expect when he's brought onto the server. That's the big thing. He just needs to personally change up the play style a little bit, make himself a little bit less predictable, and I think he can find those moments yet again. It's just right now he's being read into far too easily is what it seems like is happening.
And the last thing I'm going to put on this topic before we stop, I want to stop beating a dead horse, but as long as that dead horse keep pulling up half alive, I'm going to beat the hell out of it anyways, right? You can see the frustration in Merc's gameplay, right, Stokes and Blue? I see him
absolutely.
Always as one of the first deaths on TSM is Maestro. Maestro's supposed to be your last line of defense, but he's aggressively peeking because he's trying to get back into the groove. I get it. You want to be like Kobe. You want to keep shooting the ball until you get that score. sometimes you got to slow it down, get out of that funk, and just keep it going. But you know what? I respect it. So, Merc, I don't want to have this discussion again with any type of, looking in the camera and talking bad about you. Next time I talk about you, I want to talk about your resurgence and how you're the best entry player in the entire NA League.
Merc, these folks just had the harsh words for you because they know you can do better. They just have such high expectations that they want you to meet. As always, we're not mad, we're just disappointed. But moving on, let's take a look at what is to come in the world of competitive Rainbow Six inside the North American League. The matchups we can look forward to are, we're going to see Nordic Esports versus Livid and PogChamp versus Polar Ace on Friday, which of course will take care of our challengers and Canadian divisions. Monday we've got Dark Zero versus SSG and Sonics versus E United, and Wednesday we have TSM versus TBD and Tempo Storm versus TBD, depending on how the rest of things shake out. What are you guys excited about?
I think the first thing for me is probably our first game on Wednesday, because if I am remembering our rule set correctly and how that works out, I'm pretty sure that match will determine the final guaranteed major spot between all these teams. If I'm wrong on that, feel free for someone to chime in here and correct me. But I think that prospect alone, regardless of who goes up against TSM, we already talked about the group itself and the fact that all the matches in that group are going to be great, but that match will be both those teams fighting to the bitter end, as I think that one will probably determine who gets the major slot and who just ends up in 4th place in that group and only gets the qualifier.
You're correct. That's exactly what that means. So, Dark Zero versus SSG is definitely going to be the matchup on here that stands out to me for the exact same fact. Plus, how Dark Zero has been playing, going up against SSG, you're talking about the two teams that care the most about strats out of the entire field of NA. These are the two teams that no matter what, they're going to be able to pull something out that you haven't seen or some change inside of their setup to throw you completely off mid-game. I'm very excited for that.
You know what game I'm excited for? Look at the bottom right, Tempo Storm versus To Be Determined. You know why I'm excited for this game?
Because you wanted to be the Sonics?
Why is that?
We will crown the worst team in the first season of the new U.S. division. And not only that, on Twitter, Thomas, Butters, everyone out there are gutting for that 8th place team, and they want to take their spot so bad. So I want to see who the worst of the worst is. That we're always looking for the best of the best. I want to see who the worst of the worst is, and I just want to fantasize about some type of matchup against The Last Dance, PogChamp, or whoever makes you have it, because I legitimately feel like if you fall that low, these CO teams are going to 100% take that spot, and I believe they will.
Well, a lot of interesting stuff happened this past week inside the NAL. Gentlemen, do you have any final thoughts to leave our audience with?
Well,
Shuttle.
you know what?
We almost
No.
So the answer is yes.
Okay, so yes. The answer is yes. Secondly, if we don't get Blue a Gucci sponsorship, I don't know. We're trying so hard here. We've got clips.
Working on it.
He's worn the scarf like 70 times. Come on, guys. We need some assistance here.
It smells like last month still around his neck. It's ridiculous, right?
Show it off.
There we go.
It's great. It's his thing. It's his trademark.
Sexy.
The sexy scarf.
I like it. It looks nice.
Well,
It just doesn't fit well in 100-degree heat. That's the downside.
that's true. It's maybe the wrong season for it. But anyway, thank you all for joining us here inside the NAL. Be sure to catch us on Twitter at R6esportsNA so that you don't miss any of the action. And we will see you right here next week.